Hi, I'm Mindy.
Hi, I'm Matt.
Hi, I'm Chris.
And I'm Daniela, and we're going to be presenting on ethics and CSR, corporate social responsibility in banking. And introduction. So I just put two pictures to give you a visual of what corporate social responsibility and the ethics in banking that we're going to be discussing in our presentation. So ethics in banking and corporate social responsibility, or CSR, are really important topics because they both influence consumers' views on financial institutions. CSR does not have a set universal definition. It is oftentimes described as a tool or a model that requires companies to change their attitudes on certain policies, I guess. It was developed in response to the public distrust and criticism of banks that came as a result of the financial crisis of 2008, and it seeks to restore confidence in banks through the incorporation of legal, ethical, economic, and philanthropic expectations set by society. Businesses then set CSR policies through volunteering, philanthropy, and other sorts of environmental efforts. Some big companies that have adopted CSR policies are Ben & Jerry's, Tom's the Shoe Company, and Starbucks Coffee. Ben & Jerry's uses CSR policies in two ways. It's both environmentally sustainable, so all of its farms and factories in Vermont are, I think they're powered by solar panels, and they're just environmentally sustainable. And they also use fair trade ingredients. Tom's mission statement is for every shoe that it sells, it'll give a shoe to a pair of shoes to a child that needs them, or a person that needs them. And then Starbucks Company only uses sustainably grown coffee in its production. And then later on, Chris will be talking about ethical issues in banking. So following the financial crisis of 2008, ethics in banking has increasingly been in the spotlight because consumers want banks to be more transparent and open in their banking operations. As facilitators of the flow of funds, banks hold a lot of power, and they can use this power to either better the world or destroy the world, essentially. So it's really important that we discuss this issue. And now Mindy will be talking about corporate social responsibility.
So one of the sides of ethical strategies in banking is the corporate social responsibility, which serves as a business model that requires companies to apply a radical change in their attitude for the common good. So for their employees, consumers, and anyone who uses the financial services. CSR was made following the 2008 financial crisis in order to implement more trust in these banks, more accountability and transparency in the banks as well. Education and the provision of information is an important component of the central banks to enhance the financial awareness. It's very important to know what is going on and be aware to the issues so people can resolve the problem. Ultimately, CSR enhances the economic performance and the fundamental principles of business ethics. As you can see here, this is the CSR pyramid, which starts with the economic responsibility here at the bottom. Economic responsibility serves as the foundation of the policies of CSR. So without economic responsibility, the company can't grow or further achieve the policies that CSR wants. So economic responsibility allows for the company to increase shareholders' wealth, ensure profitability and growth. The next one is legal responsibility, which has the company aim to minimize risk and ensure safety and confidence in the financial system. The next one is ethical responsibility, which embodies the basic ethical principles of honesty and integrity and basic human dignity to make sure everyone is respected. The next one we have this discretionary responsibility, which allows employers to work in a safe environment free from discrimination and respect of everyone. Banks not only need to watch the direct environmental impacts of their operations, but also the external impacts, such as consumers and employees. All of this are important components of the CSR in order for them to move further. Now Chris is going to explain some of the scandals that have been currently happening in the economy.
So we have the financial crisis of 2008, which was subject to subprime mortgage-backed securities. And this pretty much could be summed up as brokers were getting compensated for giving out as many loans as they possibly could to people who did not have the credit to back up these loans that were given to them. Low interest rates by the Federal Reserve was also a major issue. The derivatives market regulation was also a problem because CDs and CMOs were all interconnected in the market, which also caused a lot of problems because everything was connected to each other. And that's why when one of the parts of the markets fell, like the future contracts or options, they all fell because everything was intertwined. The rating agencies also had an enormous interest conflict, and this comes into our Barclays 2005 or 2009 LIBOR rate crisis. And this was when derivative traders attempted to manipulate LIBOR by requesting that dealers submit rates that would benefit the traders. And the LIBOR rate is basically a weighted average of all big banks. There's around 11 to 16 big banks who offer a LIBOR rate for that day, given around 11 a.m. But what ended up happening was the Barclay traders were manipulating their interest rates for their bank, saying that their credit rating was better than it actually was. And this led to enormous problems because their financial health and their high liquidity was not correct. And this made people look at Barclays as a very low risk firm, even though they weren't. So they were manipulating the market by doing this. Next, why the regulation could be bad for the economy. A lot of bankers would argue that the Dodd-Frank Act, which is all about more regulation, less stability, and the Federal Reserve can ask banks to increase their reserve requirements, which is the money that it has saved and used for lending and business costs. The banks also have plans of an orderly shutdown, and in that event, they have to have plans for liquidity and how they're going to pay back everyone. Another problem was that the hazards of the Dodd-Frank Act came with companies not being able to proprietary trading, and that was where banks, and there's only a few true investment banks now. This is Jefferies, LionTree, and one other one. And basically what this was is that these markets and these traders and sales and traders in these markets were not getting compensated anymore for their trading. So this meant less money for the bank in the long run, and they were less willing to debt finance other corporations and give out loans and CDs to all these consumers because they were very risk averse. They couldn't afford a default because this would affect their bank and their credit rating.
So now to conclude on some of the points that Mindy mentioned, banks and firms, they are supposed to work with motivation of increasing shareholder wealth, and if that's their mindset, they're going to be working in a responsible manner and creating a good workplace that customers want to see. So if they take care of their legal responsibilities, they're going to instill confidence in their customers to do business with them. If they fulfill their ethical responsibility, they'll show that they have a great deal of integrity. Their discretionary responsibilities promote a lack of discrimination, or better said, no discrimination, whether it's during application processes or just the everyday work environment. So if they can take care of that, they're going to instill a whole lot more confidence in the customers that they need to reinstill the confidence in who lost it during the financial crisis. Now to move on to a more of a current event. Donald Trump, the president-elect, is planning to do a lot of things, as everyone knows, but one of the things he's touched at a lot is a repeal of the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform Act. So basically right now, banks are required to hold a lot more capital and undergo intense regulations that limit their ability to return as much capital as they'd like to their shareholders through dividends and stock buybacks. So right now for customers, this makes doing business with banks a lot more expensive because there's a lot more costs that they have to pay. However, when proprietary trading, which is the other aspect of it, gets reversed so that it can take place, the banks will be able to significantly increase the liquidity in their fixed income departments, and this will lead to a decreasing of the validity of the markets, which will make them a lot safer, and customers will have a lot more confidence in investing in the different markets. So Donald Trump really wants to appeal this act, and he's going to have the help of the Republicans who control both the Senate and the House. But his one problem could be that the Democrats still control many upper chamber seats, which could lead to them not approving of his appeal of the act. So only time will tell, and there could be significant changes in how the markets operate within the next coming months when Donald Trump becomes the acting president. So only time will tell with that.